Thank you guys for tuning in to another edition or segment of the Sit Down Malik Wright. As we are coming to you guys live from our in-home studios for an unexpected, expected to some degree, but an unexpected impromptu um, show as we discuss the loss of Joe Burrow for the remainder of the season for the Bengals, and honestly, just the outlook for the remainder of the year and what's next, right, for the Bengals, because that's a big, big question mark. You have people talking out there about tanking, and let me be clear. Let me just be clear. The roster isn't one person, right? It's a huge loss. It's a monumental loss, but there's a reason why you have 52 other guys on the team, right, on the active roster. I certainly don't get the notion that this team is willing to roll over and die. I don't get the notion that the team isn't, going to continue to fight. But I'm also a realist, a lot like you guys, right? And we understand without number 9, without Joe Burrow out there for the Bengals, it's a massive loss for the Bengals on so many levels. He is the leader of the franchise. He's a guy that brings order to this offense. And to be quite honest with you, he instills belief in his teammates. When he's out there, they play with a certain level of confidence. Having a quarterback like Joe Burrow, that's what it does. That's what it does for the entire team. But I do want to say I do still expect this team to fight. I do expect this this team to try and stack wins and try to see as far as they could take this thing. But the reality of the situation without Joe Burrow out there definitely does hurt. I certainly think that there can be some positives. And let me tell you what those positives are before I let my co-host Daniel speak. I think the positives are, if we're looking really, really in depth at this, is there's a chance, there's a shot that hopefully this coaching staff can find their identity offensively. That is what I'm clinging on to hope-wise, right? Hopefully this coaching staff could find some type of identity while Joe Burrow is not in the starting lineup, because you need something positive to carry over into next season, because that's something that has sort of halted them this year and years previous, is the offense has no identity. But if you can get some type of success or semblance of success with Jake Browning or AJ McCarron, whoever winds up being the starting quarterback down the line, the idea is you have some hope to cling on to for the following season when Joe Burrow is expected to return fully healthy. But make no mistake about it, I thought that the schedule was tough down the stretch. It gets even tougher now without having Joe Burrow in the lineup. Daniel, what are your thoughts on the loss of Joe Burrow and what this means for the Bengals, the significance of what it means for the Bengals season? Before we do that, also, I want to make sure you guys do us a huge favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live. But Daniel, what are your thoughts?
So first off, the Cincinnati Bengals, and this is where you as a friend, you as a fan have to ask yourself, right? Like, we're still going to be going to the games. You guys are still going to be watching the team. So you have to ask yourself, right, as you're watching these games, what are you looking for, right? You're looking for, I think you made a great point. This offense needs to find an identity. And it was something where if you guys watch the game, you saw that this coaching staff and their offense shouldn't be a huge drastic change if your quarterback goes out. I understand the drop-off between a Joe Burrow and a Jake Browning, but look at the other rosters and look at how the other schemes are built around the NFL. You got Kyle Shanahan who's able to replace quarterbacks, swap Brock Purdy, put in Sam Darnold. And that's the one hope I have for the Cincinnati Bengals, because all of us as fans, all of us who analyze the team understood that their biggest issue has been they don't have an offensive identity. It's you go out, you play backyard football at time, you don't establish the run. So I'm with you. I hope that over the next 7 games that they're able to find, hey, if we establish the run with Joe Mixon, if we're able to mix up the single back, the shotgun looks, our passing game and our play action game is able to, run a lot more smooth, switching to the other side of the ball. I hope that some of this young talent develops. I think that's something where, this defense hasn't been as vaunted as it was before. This defense has been bottom 10 in a lot of categories this season. I want to see this defense turn it around. I want to see this defense, guys like Miles Murphy. I want to see guys like Jordan Battle. I want to see this defensive line specifically. I want to see them step up and show something that will give the Bengals hope heading into next year, because respectfully, we can't rely on the Bengals coaching staff and the Bengals front office going out there and getting a star pass rusher to pair with Trey Hendrickson. We don't know what the future lies. So that's what I'm hoping for. And also, like I said, it's going to be a very weird time. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals go out and rattle off a couple of wins. And that's where you can't have, full on hope with Jake Browning, but that's the situation the Bengals are in. And it's going to put a lot of Bengals fans in a tough position, because they're going to say, well, we should be losing because we want a higher draft pick. And to talk about the draft real quick, it's very important to understand the higher draft pick you have. Look at the Cincinnati Bengals. They hit on Joe Burrow. They hit on Jamar Chase. Besides that, it's been kind of tough. So the higher draft pick you do have, it puts yourself in a better position to come back towards next season. So the final point I want to make is looking towards next season. You guys can see this is a trend in the NFL. A lot of times when teams lose their star quarterback, the following season tends to be a lot better. You can look at the 49ers. You can look at the Green Bay Packers from 3 years ago with Aaron Rodgers. It tends to work out in your favor the following season, because the public and everybody seems to write that team off. So I know that's 7 months, 8 months in the future, but next year, don't be surprised if you see those same media pundits not counting, the Bengals into the playoffs, not looking at the Bengals as contenders, and it leads them to be underrated.
Well, I mean, I think there's a huge contingency base of Bengals fans who want to talk about the positives. The season is by no means over yet, right? Mathematically speaking, Bengals are 5-5, still have a lot of games left. I'll say this. I think that this should be an eye-opening for the Bengals going forward, that upgrading the backup quarterback position is something that is huge. It's something that needs to be done, because you don't want to find yourself in this type of a situation. I'm of the belief, I don't know what you guys believe, but I'm of the belief that if the Bengals want to actually try to rattle off games and win games here, I think A.J. McCarron gives the Bengals the best chance. That's my opinion. We've seen him thrust it into this type of role before, but I understand why you have to go with Jake Browning. He's the guy that has been here longer. He's the guy that won the backup job, albeit from Trevor Siemian. And he's been in the system for a little bit, right? So he longer than A.J. McCarron. So you kind of have to give him a chance to prove himself. But I don't think that Zach Taylor and company see it that way. I think that they believe that they're going to ride with Jake Browning and really get behind him and stand behind him to see what he can muster up. It's unfortunate because, everybody was screaming for the Bengals to address the backup quarterback position and get an upgrade there, because in the event of this, we're not talking about the season being over in November, right? We're not talking about the Bengals season being on life support in November, because if you have a capable backup quarterback like a Jacoby Brissett, like a Josh Dobbs, who nobody really expected that from Josh Dobbs this year. But even you think about the guy that they brought in, Will Greer. Yeah. Will Greer, who they let the Patriots, I think, poach off their practice. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, if you address the backup quarterback position, you got a capable backup in here, somebody could still manage the rest of the season and get this Bengals team to a respectable record. But it feels like doom and gloom in Cincinnati, because we saw Jake Browning in the preseason. We saw what he offered up, right? We saw what Jake Browning did when he was with the Vikings?
Yeah.
I forgot who he was with before he was with the Bengals, but we saw what he offered up, and it wasn't it left a lot to be desired. Let's just say that. So
Vikings.
It was Vikings, right? Yeah. So it's a situation, a spot that none of us wanted the Bengals to be in, but it's a harsh reality. It's what happens when you don't properly address the roster needs. And I'm not going to use this show as an opportunity to beat up on Duke Tobin or beat up on Zach Taylor and company. I'm just going to say, let's learn from the future, learn from the past mistakes for the future, right? Because you want to put yourself in a situation to where you have if you have a championship level roster, you have to do everything in your power to put out a winner, right? And that includes the backup quarterback position. So, that's just my thoughts. Somebody said, "Are the Bengals still Super Bowl contenders? Still, y'all still got Chase Higgins in defense, or was that false?" I think that the Bengals I think that if you look at just the totality of the offense, how the semblance of everything, T. Higgins been in and out of the lineup. The defense has gone through their peaks and valleys, I would say, lacking to get pressure. I don't think it was false, but we'd be lying up here if we said without Joe Burrow in the lineup, the confidence level of this team doesn't take a hit, right? They're still going to show up. They're still going to suit up because they're professionals, and that's what they have to do. But the fact of the matter is, you lose a premier player who's one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and Joe Burrow. It does take a hit to confidence. It does take a hit to the morale of this team. It's up to Zach Taylor and company now to um, get the ship righted. I'll say this: I think if you have a Kyle Shanahan as the head coach, right? I don't think that it's doom and gloom because we saw what that guy is able to do with different types of quarterback. We saw what that guy's able to do with an offense that is talent or does have talent on it. He's able to get the most out of his roster. But the fact of the matter is, and this isn't me knocking on the guy, but Zach Taylor even struggled to get some consistency from a play calling standpoint out of the offense, even with Joe Burrow in the lineup. So it's one of those things where it's like you don't have confidence. You don't have the confidence that they can right the ship or they can keep the ship afloat with Joe Burrow out of the lineup. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, to touch on the backup quarterback, you made a great point. The Kyle Shanahan. Let me list some names off for you guys. These are the best backup quarterbacks that have had postseason runs. Brock Purdy last year, Nick Foles with the Eagles, Ryan Tannehill with the Titans, Case Keenum with the Vikings, and Dak Prescott with the Cowboys. I want you to think about every one of those teams. Every one of those teams had an elite defense or an elite system on offense and an elite scheme that the opposing or the backup quarterback can come in and fit right in. Every one of those. Brock Purdy, Nick Foles, look at that defense, elite defense. Ryan Tannehill had, one of the best Mike Vrabel, young coaches, best all-around defenses. Case Keenum, same thing with the Vikings, one of the best defenses in the league that year. Dak Prescott had a great Cowboys roster. That's the difference between them and the Bengals as they are right now. The Bengals have great talent on offense with the Jamar Chase, with T. Higgins, but it goes back to the thing we've been preaching from the mountaintops. And the reason why the Bengals have gotten themselves into these holes early in the year, it's no offensive identity, and you don't have an elite, stout defense. They are a turnover, reliant defense, and they don't have a system on offense. It's not like a Kyle Shanahan, like you said. And that's the part that's going to separate this Jake Browning, this A.J. McCarron-led Bengals versus a Brock Purdy and Nick Foles-led opposing team. And that's why the Bengals can rattle off a couple wins. But as far as the ceiling goes, you only go now as far as your coaching staff and your scheme. And that's the exact opposite of what the Bengals have been running with recently. It was, hey, Joe Burrow takes you over the top. With the Kyle Shanahan team, it's your scheme takes you over the top, and that's the issue.
Right. And so it's one of those things where, like I said, we're all rooting for Jake Brown, and we're all rooting for this Bengals team still, obviously. And our content, I just want to clear the air. Our content doesn't stop. I'm still looking forward to coming live to you guys after each and every single Bengals game. And obviously, State of the Jungle will continue, so we will always still have content. There is a caveat to this, right? Where let's say the Bengals don't do well down the stretch here, and they start to lose some games here. Giving this team a top pick in the draft would be scary. It would be scary for a lot of reasons because this is a team that is already talented. This is a team that's already talented. So you add a top 10, top 15 draft pick to the mix here, and things get even more interesting in Cincinnati, in my opinion. I personally believe A.J. McCarron gives the Bengals the best chance to win. That's just I will go on and let me say that. He having been a guy who's been thrusted into this exact same spot before when Andy Dalton went down. I still think that he's a very talented guy. We saw what he was able to do. Even I know the XFL is not the NFL, but we saw what he was able to do with the XFL. And he showed his ability to still wing it. He's a guy that I think probably has more arm strength than a guy like Jake Browning. And I just think that, again, he's an experienced vet at this point in time. So we'll see what happens there. But A.J. McCarron, as it stands right now, is going to be backup quarterback number. He's going to be a QB2. So that'll be that. But talking about the outlook in terms of what this looks like. Let's say if the Bengals were to rattle off some losses, that puts this team in a prime spot to get a premium pick,
Yeah.
right? Trying to find the positives in losing Joe Burrow for the season, because there isn't really too many positives. But if there's one thing to take away, it doesn't seem like this injury, from all accounts, it will be long term. It'll be something where they are expecting him to make a full recovery and to be back healthy for 24 season. We saw what happened last time he was out for a full season. What happened next year? Um, I see people in the comment section saying Brock Bowers. Man, could you imagine that? That'd be pretty crazy. There's another name that I was talking with Daniel about, Jared Verse, right? There's some names to definitely consider and discuss, and we'll have the entire season, depending on week to week, how this whole thing shakes out, right? The Bengals bye week has already passed, so we've got Bengals football all the way down the stretch here, but it'll be interesting, man. This is an interesting time. Like, for me, it sucks that Burrow went down, but we still have a lot to look forward to, in my honest and humble opinion. But let's drop some questions down in the comment section. We'll get to some. Somebody said we getting it. I like Daniel Jensen, my guy. He's always in the comment section. He said we getting a Gucci bag next draft. I agree. Man. I like that. I might put that on a shirt. We getting a Gucci bag.
Oh man, there's some good names out there, man.
Yeah, man. We need to get rid of Volson next season. I think that I think my good friend Joe Goodberry said it best. We're entering the evaluation stage for the entire team the next couple of weeks. Obviously, you want to win, but you're also in the evaluation stage because you want to see who's going to step up. You want to see what you really have in a lot of these players. So it's going to be interesting. Our guy Landon Van Steen said, "Are we worried about Burrow being injury prone? The next Andrew Luck." That Joe Burrow has definitely been unlucky with some injuries, right? The appendix, but that's not really a football related injury. You got the appendix, you got the calf, you got the ACL, now you got the wrist. You certainly want to keep him upright, right? But also Joe Burrow's play style will always put you on edge, because even though it may look like, hey, the offensive line is, the reasoning why, I think that play calling, I think that Joe Burrow is him holding on to the ball a lot longer, trying to make a play. You'll always hold your breath out there with him out there at quarterback sometimes, because he plays in such a manner in which he's willing to live and die on his sword, if you will. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the one thing I hate about the term injury prone, in my opinion, is it's okay to call somebody injury prone if it's like the same type of injury, whether it's, the constant ankle, whether it's a constant knee. When I look at Joe Burrow, everyone's been different. One was the non-contact, obviously the ACL. This one, from everything we've seen, was on that one specific play. And you look at his calf, I understand, but you're telling me, like, I guess people can be injury prone, but the fact of the matter is the dude, towards ACL and now has one season-ending injury. They don't correlate with one another. I don't think it's okay to call, consider him like Andrew Luck. I think there's a difference. I think, you can look at other quarterbacks' play styles like RG3. Those other quarterbacks, they have play styles, and Joe Burrow, his play style is conducive to more injuries, but the injuries he sustained weren't necessarily from the play style. So injury prone, he sure has been injured a lot in his career, but I'm not too concerned about that ruining his career.
I want to address something. Thomas Strong, I guess you're in the business of wanting to be argumentative today. So let's talk about it. He says, that was the one thing you said about Mahomes. You didn't like holding the ball. I'm confused. That's not true. Please don't put words in my mouth. I said Mahomes made his offensive line look a lot worse because of his deep dropbacks. I've always been on record saying Mahomes drops back completely unnecessarily deep, and he relies on his arm strength to get him out of situations. So meaning he extends plays long, right? So his dropbacks are deep. He extends plays long, and then he waits to receivers to uncover and then leashes the ball deep down the field. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't work. That is what I said. Most quarterbacks in the league hold the ball long. I said Mahomes made his offensive line look worse than they actually are, or even may have looked, right? Not counting Jawan Taylor, because of his deep drop back. So that is what I said. Let's not put words in people's mouths. I've never had an issue with quarterbacks necessarily holding on to the ball. Also, you got to realize Joe Burrow does not have the same skill set that a Mahomes has. So if Joe Burrow was holding on Um, so if Joe Burrow is holding onto the ball a lot longer and he's not able to uncork a 60-yard bomb down the field, guess what? Guess what? Right? It's gonna result into sacks. It's gonna result into turnovers. So you're asking now, so did Burrow make his line look worse? In instances, yes, he did. Yes, he did. In instances, yes, he did. Holding on to the football when you don't have the same skill set of a Josh Allen or a Mahomes will make your offensive line look worse. But anyway, let's keep the conversation rolling. Bo Nix for backup. I'm good off of Bo Nix personally.
Yeah.
He has not had a healthy season at all. He is injury prone, whether it's one single injury or it just happens. It doesn't matter. He's not had one complete healthy season. I agree to some degree, to some level. I do think that he has dealt with a lot of injuries, right?
Yeah.
For better or for worse. I understand what you're saying, Dan.
Yeah.
I do. But at the same time, that tag was not going to be something that he's going to need to shake, right? Because the fact of the matter, don't matter if it's a reoccurring injury or injury that happens, a different injury that happens over time. If you're not out the line of the best abilities, availability, that is the tag that will be that you'll be given. Somebody says it seems to me having a lack of running scheme creates the constant pressure. Not having creative running scheme makes Mixon's job that much harder. 100%. We talked about this last night. Running out of shotgun is not conducive to anybody's health or the success of the offense. It's just too predictable. So you need to go under center. And we talked about it even more. Even when Joe Burrow went out, they went back under center. So for the life of me, I don't know why you treat Joe Burrow. Even though Joe Burrow is obviously light years better than Jake Browning, you should still try to protect him and try to alleviate the pressure on him and not make his job easier. As awesome as he is, you still need to run the ball under center. You still have to show different variations of this offense. And that is something that this coaching staff needs to get ahead of. Something else I will also want to address. I don't foresee a world in which Jack Taylor is not the head coach is let go. I don't think that's going to happen. So it feels like because of the success that he has had, we do need to see this offensive coaching staff develop and evolve, right? They need to really use these next couple of games, however many games the Bengals have left, to really evaluate the offense and really try to find an identity. I think that's something that's going to help them significantly. Want to keep the conversations rolling. For the backup quarterback this offseason, do you prefer a draft or free agency? Anything that'll get the job done? Obviously, I think you probably want more of an experienced guy in there because it's just hard to ask to thrust a rookie into that type of a situation. But you take what you can get. And I don't mean that mean settling. Some Chuck 2624 says Baltimore's averaging 4 sacks a game this year. They sacked Burrow 3 times in a game and a half. So not too bad. Yep. Landon Vincent says, I was so happy Zach Taylor addressed and defended Logan Wilson in the press conference. I agree. I think that was asinine that so many reporters, so many people recklessly were insinuating that guy was a dirty player. That can be further from the truth. Seagrith 142 says, it is the most important offseason in franchise history. I think he said, it is this. I think you're asking, is this the most important offseason in franchise history? I think Tobin needs to make his plan and motion today and make not the same mistake with the lack of depth for 2024. 100%. They need to look at themselves in the mirror and they need to say, we can't let the same stuff that hindered us last year hinder us moving forward. So things like addressing the backup quarterback position, things like getting more juice from the pass rush situation. Now, the jury's still out on Joseph Ossai. Joseph Ossai and Miles Murphy are going to have their opportunities and their day in court to prove that they can be formidable players for the Bengals. That is the beautiful thing about this series. I mean, this season, the rest of the way, we are in evaluation stages. So we know what we have in Nick Scott already. Now it's time to see what you got in Jordan Bow, what you got in Dax Hill and that tandem, right? They're getting more reps together. The linebacking core is getting more reps together. You want to see more juice from this defensive line for sure. But this is a pivotal offseason. What are your thoughts on the offseason, Daniel?
I think it's definitely a pivotal offseason. To say it's the most important, I think you guys are going to have this common trend. Every single offseason for this window is going to be the most important offseason. Yeah. This past offseason was the most important offseason because this was your window, respectfully, right? Everybody knew heading into this year, they're giving it to you on a gold platter. They're saying, hey, you get all your coaches back. You have your star quarterback. You have your star 2 receivers. You haven't paid them any money yet. So understand that this past offseason, as much as we're looking ahead right now and saying, okay, this upcoming offseason, if you get a top 12 pick, you have to hit on that pick and it has to be productive this upcoming season. But look at last offseason too. We were saying, hey, you're going to be in position where you're right up there with the Chiefs. You're right up there with the 49ers. It's there for the taking. So this offseason is definitely pivotal. And I'm going to be honest, it might, to kind of go back, it might be even more pivotal because now the money's tight. Now you just paid, Joe Burrow, and now you've got to have the conversation. T. Higgins, you've got to have the conversation. DJ Reader, Tyler Boyd. There's a lot more question marks, in my opinion, this offseason than there was last year, right? Yeah. Jesse Bates was kind of foregone conclusion he wasn't going to be there. Von Bell, we understand, but it wasn't. Right now you got Higgins, DJ Reader, and Tyler Boyd, and I'm sure I missed a couple. Jonah Williams. You got a bunch of pieces that are, huge states where you're going to have to replace them. This offseason, you didn't have to replace many people.
So I will tell you guys this. One thing that if I'm the Brown family, yeah, right, and I'm not a Brown family, yeah, but if I'm the Brown family, I would really look at Zach Taylor very closely in this year in this way. Think about it. This is a roster that went to the Super Bowl. This is a roster that has been the AFC Championship the last 2 years. Right now, the Bengals are winless in the AFC North. If you can't find a way to win a game in the AFC North and compete just because your quarterback went down, that is a problem. Yep. That is a problem. Make no mistake about it. And that's something that I think that it will get people in the city talking. It will get people in that organization talking. That is what I will say. It needs, the Bengals need to find ways. Zach Taylor and them can't just be like, oh, Joe Burrow's out, we're settling on 5 wins. And I think that's the thing that I'm most fearful of, because think about what that does to the organization. Hear me out for a second. If Zach Taylor goes winless in the division, let's say Zach Taylor even goes winless on the season the rest of the way, you might be like, yes, Joe Burrow's back 2024, but what confidence does the rest of the team have in Zach Taylor as a coach?
Yep.
And that's a real conversation. What confidence does the team have in Zach Taylor as the coach the rest of the way? That's just my thoughts.
No, and let me bring this up too, right? And that's where it is important. We all want that top pick, but it is important. And so let me paint this picture for you guys. You're going up against the Vikings. You're going up against the Browns. You're going up against the Colts. What do all 3 of those teams have in common? They have a backup quarterback starting right now. So I promise you guys, you're going up against those 3 teams. I know you still got the Chiefs. You still got the Steelers. But those 3 teams, the Colts, the Browns, and the Vikings, all have backup quarterbacks. And if you lose 2 of those games, that's embarrassing. Mm-hmm. Because God damn it, you have a better roster than all 3 of those teams. Better than the Vikings, better than the Colts. And I mean, the Browns have an elite defense, but all 3 of those teams have backup quarterbacks. And if you get crushed by them, if you can't look respectable against them, that should tell you guys everything you need to know about this coaching staff and how this team is currently constructed.
Let me be very clear, Zach Taylor. The eyes of Cincinnati is on you. Let me be very clear, Brian Callahan. The eyes of Cincinnati are on you guys. 100%. You guys got to find a way to muster up some wins here. You can't go winless in your division. You certainly can't go winless down the stretch here. You have to find a way. I understand it gets tough because guess what the narrative becomes? The narrative becomes Joe Burrow made you. Joe Burrow is the reason why you guys still have jobs in the NFL. That's what the narrative becomes. So they need to find a way to win, and they need to find a way to win in their division. They cannot go winless in their division. They cannot go winless down here down the stretch, because that to me does way more harm to this team, right? And this team's belief in Zach Taylor as a coach. They could say all the things they want to about him being a player's coach and about him believing in the players and putting them in position and all that kind of stuff like that. But this is where we know. This is where the bread and butter. So yeah, I understand people like pressure either makes diamonds or bursts pipes. But the pressure is on this coaching staff. You have to find a way to muster up some wins without Joe Burrow. And if you don't, so help you God, because then it will look that bad. It will look like that.
Now that we're talking about it, it's kind of weird. I'm kind of excited. And that's the reason why, you just brought up. I'm excited because all these conversations we've been having, leading up, early in the year, saying, okay, the Bengals coaching staff, they're the issue, right? The coaching staff, the play calling's the issue. We get those questions answered. Mm-hmm. We get those questions answered, and I'm excited because like we were talking about, we get to see what this coaching staff is made of.
Mhm.
And I know Joe Burrow's not there, and I know that a lot of people will give them a pass, but are you going to roll over and die, or are you going to look like these other coaching staffs? Are you going to show, hey, Zach Taylor, you're not made by Sean McVay. You're not made, Lou Anarumo, you deserve to be a head coach. Show us.
Yeah.
Show us.
I mean, and like I can't overstate this enough though, but uh, again, this is a defining moment in the Zach Taylor era. I will say that
Yeah.
this is a defining moment. This will let this team know: do we have a winner mentality at coach? Zach Taylor, nothing should change, right? You should instill the same confidence that you have in Joe Burrow and Jake Browning, regardless if he has the same skill set or anything like that. You have to show that type of confidence in a guy like Jake Browning in order for his confidence to continue to build. You need to tell this offense, hey, you know what? Even if I don't believe in Jake Browning, Zach Taylor, that's what Zach Taylor's mentality has to be. I still believe in Jamar Chase. I still believe in our playmakers. I still believe in our ability to get first down. So if you're faced with a situation that is pivotal, you need to, excuse my French, you need to put your nuts on the table.
Yep.
And that's what the mentality has to be down the stretch. But we are entering a very, very, you're entering a very, very pivotal stage. Somebody said, I'm not excited because it means our window of winning a Super Bowl might officially have been closed. I don't believe that. I don't think it is. But somebody said, are you spitting reverse psychology? No, I don't think so. I think again, I think it's a pivotal moment because you have all these questions about, okay, obviously they're working tandem. Joe Burrow, Brian Callahan, and Zach Taylor are working tandem, but you want to know that if Joe Burrow's out of lineup, let's say Joe Burrow even has to miss a game, because that's inevitable in a quarterback's NFL career. You're going to have to miss a game. You want to know that the guy that is calling plays and the guy that is leading the charge is a guy that you could truly get behind. You want to know that there's a guy that if all hell, breaks loose, he can still call an adequate game plan to keep this team afloat. And right now, I don't think that's what any Bengals fan confidently can say. We saw it once with Brandon Allen in there against the Texans a couple years back, but we've yet to see it with a Jamar Chase, with a T. Higgins, and certainly with a Jake Browning at quarterback. So this is a pivotal moment. This is the eyes of Cincinnati, the eyes of Houday Nation is on this coaching staff like never before. It's almost reminiscent of the dark days of Zach Taylor era, honestly. Not in the sense of like the team is this bad. I'm saying you go into games, right, hoping to have questions answered.
Yep.
And there are so many questions that have arisen about this defense, right? Because the notion out there with Lou is Jesse Bates and Von Bell helped make his defense what it is. So he has questions now to answer too, as well, with his new young safety tandem. Are they going to be able to generate pressure from someone? Is he going to be able to get the most out of Joseph Asai, out of Miles Murphy, out of Cam Sample? That is the questions for Lou. Like for me, everybody outside of Darren Simmons, maybe with Brad Robbins, but everybody on the coaching staff has to answer questions. It's an unprecedented spot that we haven't been in since Joe Burrow's been the quarterback of the Bengals. And it's one that all Bengals fans should really look forward to. And that's just my humble opinion.
Yeah. And my mind, like I said, it keeps going back to looking at these other teams that have made it. And what I mean by that is the most impressive teams in NFL history, in my opinion, are teams that did it with the backup quarterback. And I'm not saying you're winning a Super Bowl this year, right? But as you said, it's inevitable. Your quarterback, especially if people are talking about Joe Burrow being injury prone, it's inevitable at some point you're going to have to rely on a backup quarterback. And the most impressive time, trust me, I loved watching the Patriots growing up, and Nick Foles, what he did with that Eagles team, Brock Purdy, what he did with the 49ers team last year, that's what you want to see with this Bengals team, respectfully. And if you can get, as an organization, if you can get to the point where you say, hey, we've got our superstar 9, he is going to take us to the promised land, but God forbid something happens to him and we need him for one game. We need a backup quarterback for one game. Our team, our 52 other men can take over. That's the point I want to be as a Bengals fan, Because God knows the 49ers fans last year, once they saw Brock Purdy, they were like, holy crap. All right, we still got a shot. Eagles fans, they said, holy crap, we still got a shot. Without our, MVP candidate Carson Wentz, Nick Foles stepped right in there with that team and they won a freaking Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So my biggest takeaway from even talking with you right now is, hey, this coaching staff, you've got 7 games to prove yourself.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and Iron Man, I don't think anybody here, I don't think you're talking about Daniel's take. I don't think anybody here is giving him a pass. I think everybody is just here in the evaluation stage, as we all should be, right? We're trying to see if he can come up with some type of working game plan to help this offense establish some type of an identity. If you're not able to, then that looks very, very bad. Somebody says, somebody asked the question, where is it at? Still have Chase, Mixon, Boyd, return of Higgins, and better tight end play. Plenty of talent. The ball on the offensive side of the ball, efficiency a lot like the Vikings. Somebody asked, even if they only win a few or not at all, do you think they'd even pull the trigger and fire Zach? Who would they bring in if that happened? Number one, not saying they fired Zach, but I will say this: you have to listen to your team. You have to listen to your team. I don't know if they'll be in a situation. Let's say the Bengals go winless, right? Which I don't think that will happen. But if in the event that they were to go winless, man, you have to ask yourself what type of belief does this team have in not only him but just the coaching staff as a whole. That's a real question. I would say you can't, even if you lose your quarterback, you can't not go out there and not field a competitive team. And I'm sorry, I think that is a genuine fear for Bengals fans. It's the reason why they were in the situation where they were able to draft Jamar Chase before. And you would just think in year 5, the offense would have some type of an identity. This team would have some type of an identity to the point where something they could fall back on. And right now you don't see that. You don't have that, right? So here's to hoping that they can muster something up. They got the Steelers coming to Paycor Stadium here. It's something that should happen. Somebody says, because is the one that, Brian Callahan is the one that should be taking most of the heat. He is the offensive coordinator after all. We mainly just blame Zach. No, you blame them both because they every step of the way, they said it's a collective play calling thing. So if you're willing to die on that sword, you got to be willing to deal with the consequences. So no, it shouldn't just be blaming Brian Callahan. It should be also blaming Zach Taylor. Brian Callahan is the offense coordinator. Zach Taylor calls the plays, and they do that all together. So I think it's one of those things where the blame has to be held together respectfully. I'm sorry. Brian Callahan do got to go only here because of his family. If they go winless, he has to relinquish play calling duties. The fact that not going under center and running the ball as a setup play action is so apparent, it's embarrassing. 100%. Listen, I think that could be a real thing, right?
Yep.
I think that if you are not able to formulate some type of semblance of an offense with that amount of talent on there, those questions will definitely grow louder. And then I definitely think that will be a situation in which questions will start to arise. 100%. I think play calling is something that could be on the table if this offense isn't able to even foster up points, which we have seen before. No, you guys are spot on. I'm not giving you guys a hard time. I think that we've seen from the coaching staff has been apparent is just about to get magnified now that Burrow's out. 100%. All the Zach Taylor truthers and all the people that think that he can do no wrong. This is a spot. This is his opportunity to prove himself. Listen, I talked to that man at the NFL Combine, one-on-one conversation, nobody else around. Love the guy. Absolutely awesome. We have the same, I believe it was not chiropractor. Yeah, chiropractor, but also masseuse. He's a great guy. He's a really, really awesome dude. Love talking ball with him. I think he's humble. I think he's great. But part of my job, right, is to cover this team, right, and to be objective about it. Yep. And the fact of the matter is, I got to call it like I see it. The eyes of Cincinnati, the eyes of Houday Nation, is 100% on Zach Taylor and Brian Callahan and company. So pressure's on, right? Listen, the National Football League is thankless. No one's going to be like, oh my God, they missed Joe Burrow. That's the reason why they're not able to put out, score 20 plus points a game with Jamar Chase, with T. Higgins, right? Because at the end of the day, you pick that guy to be your backup quarterback. So I don't believe in tanking. I don't believe any team is in the business of, hey, we're going to tank, because I just think it's too many jobs on the line, right, for that. But I will say that like I said, the eyes of the entire Bengals fandom is going to be on Zach Taylor and company. And let's be honest, the team are going to be watching this coaching staff very, very carefully. And Joe Burrow will be too as well, because it'll be like, okay, what's going on? Do we actually have a fighting chance? Let's say if he was to go down. And if the answer is no, listen, you always want to have a leader that you rely on. But if the answer is no, man, shoot, that leaves a lot to be desired.
When you guys talk about Joe Burrow, when you guys talk about how great the Cincinnati Bengals, organization can be, I can point to one example, right? The shining example. A lot of us say Joe Burrow can be one of the greats, right? One of the great quarterbacks in the NFL. You've got to look, one example, Brady and Belichick. And look at what the New England Patriots were able to accomplish even without Tom Brady. Without Tom Brady, whether it was his suspension, whether it was the year with the torn ACL, they were still able to accomplish and look like they didn't miss a beat at times. And that's the question that the Cincinnati Bengals organization has asked. What are you building? Are you trying to build a average team that relies on your superstar quarterback, or are you trying to build an elite organization that is able to develop talent for years and years down the road? And like I said, the shining example is Belichick and Brady. They did it for 15 years. And if this Bengals team wants to even get to there, Burrow's doing his part. And obviously we still have to criticize him. There are times where, he's not looking like superstar quarterback, but Burrow's done his part. He's earned his contract. The coaching staff, it's time for you to earn your part. It's time for you to earn your right as a great. And that's the standard we're holding them to, right? We're not holding them to average, right? We're not holding them to below average. If we were, then okay, then they're fine. They can go win this. That's fine. We're holding them to be great because that's Super Bowl. That's the standard for the Cincinnati Bengals right now. And this coaching staff has to prove why they're great and not average. So
definitely gonna be a lot to be desired. For life of me, I don't know why a Chiefs fan is on a Bengals show live. Like I don't understand. I guess this is your way of taking a victory lap. I'm not sure, my man, Chiefs KT, but enjoy, man. Your quarterback is healthy. Your quarterback is upright. You guys are still fighting for a lot, man. So enjoy that. How much of a chance do you guys give us to beat the Steelers next week? I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I think that game is tough. I thought it was tough with Joe Burrow. I think it's tough without Joe Burrow. I think I have a lot of respect for the Steelers defense and what they're building. And again, they don't do anything great offensively. They just find a way to grit out the games. It's a winnable game for sure. But defensively, they're going to leave. They're gonna give Jake Browning everything that he can handle and more. In my humble opinion,
I think this game comes down to forcing Kenny Pickett to have turnovers, because
which is going to happen.
But surprisingly, this year he has, and that's the thing. Like, if it's weird, I think he only has 4 turnovers this entire year. And
I mean, to be fair, they're really relying on their backs.
Yeah,
they are really relying on Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. So, I think that they're just putting him in situations where they're really taking the ball out of his hands.
Yeah,
and say that means that they have confidence in him or not. I'm not here to debate that. It's a tough game for the Bengals, but it's a winnable game as well. But we'll see what happens. Jake Browning, yeah. Joe Burrow and Adam Gase, somebody said, do you think we're losing Lou this season? Losing him to what? Like a head coaching job? No, he's not getting a head coaching job. Well, I'm sorry, he's not.
Yep.
I've been on record saying that. I think that ship has sailed for him for a while. Is it Frank Pollock's job on the line? We have a bottom half offensive line. I think that the offensive coaching staff, this is evaluation phase for everybody. That is what I will say. Look, guys, we've been live for about 45 minutes. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys get this video, like, subscribe to the channel. Listen, Bengals fan, I know it looks very, very bleak, but the future is still bright in Cincinnati long term, right? So again, sucks that Joe Burrow's down, but it's the next man up mentality, next man up attitude that we have to have. So that being said, appreciate you guys for tuning in. We hope to see you guys live when we go live next for State of the Jungle.